The 5th of April 2024. This is on the Middle East wars. All of these things impact our lives to some degree. They change the way governments think and how we have to act and everything else. Now, one of the things it's wise to do is try and get a good colour map of the Middle Eastern region, and that is not easy to get online. You might get it to buy in the shop. I doubt if any of you will do that. But the best way I can describe it in is this. If you took Israel as Ireland, and I was looking last night there on the distance between Nazareth and Bethlehem, where Christ was from and where he went and where he was born in the stable of Bethlehem, and it works out at about 100 kilometres on the map I got. That would leave it about 70 miles. That's a fair journey that they had to go on a donkey and Mary pregnant. But in any event, anyway, if you take Israel as Ireland, just roughly, you know Ireland you see on the weather forecast, the whole island of Ireland. Down off the Kerry coast would be Egypt, a huge country with a huge population and a good big military, not in good financial situations at all. So that's Egypt. That's where the pyramids are. Now, as you come across then on the Wexford side, you have a little bit of Saudi Arabia jotting up, but it's of little consequence. It's probably hard to see, does it touch Israel at all? But the next place off Wexford there would be Jordan. And Jordan is to the east of Israel. And there's the Dead Sea then, which is split between Jordan and Israel. Now, as you come on further north, the next place is Syria. And Syria is a big country, and it adjoins Israel. And the Golan Heights are roughly where Rathlin Island is in Ireland, or let's say northeast Antrim, if you know what I mean. Northeast Antrim would say off the coast of Cushendall, or generally off the top east coast of the island of Ireland. So that's a little part of the Golan Heights, and that's high ground, and it's of huge significance militarily. And Israel has been occupying that for lookout posts and all of that. Well, then, if you come across the north, with say Donegal, you have Lebanon. You have Lebanon, and it adjoins it on the north. So you have if you look at what adjoins Israel, you have the Mediterranean Sea to the west, you have Egypt to the southeast, you have Jordan to the go back on that again. You have the Mediterranean Sea being the Atlantic to the west. You have Egypt to the southwest. You have Jordan to the southeast and east, more to the east. You have Syria coming in roughly at County Down up to North Antrim there. And then you have the Lebanon at the top coast of Donegal. And that brings you back round to the Mediterranean Sea again. So you have the Mediterranean, you have Egypt, you have Jordan, you have Syria, and you have Lebanon. So that's 5 bordering countries. Now, Iran does not touch Israel, nor does Turkey. And Turkey has huge military capabilities, and it's a member of NATO. It's under huge pressure by the population there to support the Palestinians, the Gaza occupiers. Now, one of the things that comes to my mind here, will YouTube knock this now because I mentioned Palestine? I'm just giving the geographical location. They're hardly that bad, but it's very risky at the moment anyway. But in any event, they seem to be all right if you mention Gaza. Now, the Gaza Strip is roughly a small piece which is on the southwest, like where Kerry is, like where maybe Kerry joins Cork, if you know what I mean, County Cork, West Cork. And it touches uh, Egypt, and of course it touches Israel, and that's the Gaza Strip. Now there's another piece then called the West Bank, which is like the total of County Louth. So Israel has a very juxtaposed geography and difficult to to defend. Now, one of the things about it is that it looks that an incident happened the other day. It did happen actually, where Israel bombed an embassy in Damascus in Syria, which would be like located about the Isle of Man, let's say. And it was loaded full of prime targets of the opposition to the Israeli state on the Arab side. It's a breach of international law on many sides, and international law is now being thrown into the bin, essentially. But in any event, they killed a good few high-ranking opponents. And now Iran is sort of under pressure to retaliate. And Iran has its eye on a bigger picture, and that is to get the BRICS up and running. The BRICS is like the European Union, only over a wider geographical area, and they seem to be using the model of how the European Union was established, with various treaties and things like that, and a rotating country leading it for 6 months periods or something like that. So they're watching that. So none of these countries wanted war, but Iran is under pressure now after having this international incident. And of course, Israel is dying to get a war going with Iran. Now, Iraq is the shape of County Monaghan, and it's further. It's over where Scotland is roughly. It's not touching, but Iran is only a short distance. It'd be over like where the Isle of Man is or there. Okay, but it's not touching. It's Syria that touches Israel. But in any event, they're trying to get a war going between the United States and Iran. And that mayhem would help them survive, because the Israelis and Netanyahu, they really are backed into a kind of a corner at the minute. In any event, folks, a thing that I see, now don't forget the Russians have been in Syria for a long time. And there are many who say, and I tend to agree, were it not for the Russians, Syria would have been beaten. The Assad government in Syria would have been beaten, and he'd be gone. But Russia are holding on there. Now, Russia has a small economy, but it has a major, strong military capacity. It doesn't take prisoners. If there's somebody causing trouble, they're annihilated, and that's as simple as that. And they had Prigozhin working in Africa and working in Ukraine, but he got a bit too big for his boots and was taken out. But they're still around that Wagner crowd. But now the Russians have moved up and taken up posts at the foothills of the Golan Heights. And the Russian flag is flying on one part of the Golan Heights. It's not just a small plateau, it's a big enough area, like for military purposes. Possibly size of, I suppose the whole lot of it would be as big as the Dublin city itself. Now, not maybe all the surrounding parts of Dublin city, but the main part of Dublin city. And so now the Russians are in there with their flag flying, and there's photographs of Russian troops looking across at Israeli posts. So here you have a difference. It used to be when Israel mounted troops on the Golan Heights, it was only dealing with weak Syrian forces, Lebanese and all this. Russia is a totally different detail in my view. Russians are not easily bet. They're not easily beaten. And they fight a slow war of attrition. Now, of course, there'll be interesting to see what happens. Will Iran strike, or will it just do something token? See, it has its eye on the long shot, the long term, rather than the short term. But President Biden, had a conversation with Mr. Netanyahu in Israel the day before yesterday, and it lasted a full hour. They didn't fall out, but there was an acrimonious, very frank, very tough discussion. And Biden has a new situation on his hands. For years and years, the American voter didn't even have a clue where Israel was. The Israelis have they have the whole money of America controlled, and they funnel it into whichever party gives them the best deal, and they give it to both. But all the money that there is will not buy voters which are estranged. It will not buy middle of the road voters who feel that what's happening in Gaza is wrong and that their weapons, ammunition, and money and fuel is pushing it. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all, America is gone anti-Israel. It means that it has changed a bit. So this conversation was unique and it had never happened before. It doesn't look good for Israel in the long term. Certainly, if I were Jewish and living here in Ireland, we'll say, where I am, I'd be inclined to stay put and stay where I am. I don't think I'd want to go to Israel, even though the climate is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it has great riches if it was peace. But the Arabs don't want them there, and there's Hezbollah and Hamas and all them, and they don't want them either. So that's been played out and will be played out. It's such a pity there's such a loss of life, but my job is to try and bring it to your attention of roughly how the thing looks. Go online and try and get a colour map of the region and just get a rough idea of it. And isn't it amazing that our Christian religion is located right in the middle of Israel, right in the middle of it. Bethlehem, the Sea of Galilee, Jerusalem, all of these places are right in the middle of that. And it seems to me there has never been a minute's peace in it. I don't think there was ever a minute's peace. There was the Crusades and there was all this. And it's the same now as ever. Be a nice place to visit if you could, but I certainly would not go there at the moment because of the danger that is there. How that will play out, what surprises are in store, I do not know. It seems there's nearly no possibility of getting peace. I think in Ukraine, the re-election of President Trump would possibly help bring peace, but this is a different kettle of fish. Trump has been in support of Israel, and it could weaken his position a bit. I think he'll still get elected, but he might, as somebody rightly posted on one of my videos, he might be a different President Trump. He might be a different President Trump, but that's pure speculation. I hope I've made it a bit clearer. I think everyone now accepts that there's a problem. I was at a funeral the other day, and everyone I spoke to seemed to accept we are in very, very dangerous times. Some people say we should join NATO, that the Russians are down off Kerry, trying to cut the cables, or thinking of doing it down there. I don't really know. My own instinct is stay out, stay out, stay out. We're in enough. We definitely have a government at the moment which would embroil us in anything, particularly if Joe Biden orders it. And the American present government is dictating to Europe, and Europe is dancing to its tune on everything from the destruction of its industries to us doing climate change that they don't, stopping export of cars to America, and doing everything to do down Europe financially and industrially. And I think that's enough. I think America's getting enough of us without them wanting to get our children or our troops or anything else. That's my own view. Other people say that Putin won't know the difference between Ireland and England. He has an embassy in Dublin. Surely to God they can tell him it's a different state, but some people say differently. And if we become a member of NATO, then we're into the policy of mutual assured destruction. And I have said before 1,000 times, what I really fear is that if it went nuclear, that Britain would be hit somewhere around the south-east Midlands of Britain. And that would send refugees in all directions. And that would really cook our goose. Because meanwhile, the rest of the world, the 80% who are described as the global south, or not really south, or looking to BRICS and all that, are realizing that there's no future in Europe and not a lot in America either. And so this is the situation we're in, and the situation which I and many more are desperately trying to change and bring people back, get out the politicians who are in government and put in something that represents the people as we had in times gone past. That's why we got our independence. Some people to this day say it was a big mistake to get our independence. I don't happen to altogether agree with that, but that's for another day. I hope I've brought you up to date on that, folks. On 15 minutes, it's long enough. The key for me is the Russians now stuck into the Golan Heights. I think that is an escalation. That is a big thing. Russia in the Golan Heights, right beside Israel, right beside the top of Israel. It has to be a big concern. Russia is one of the most best armed nuclear powers in the world, with a poor enough economy, but with a known ability to fight tough in its own area. Give me a thumbs up and comment underneath. They're always appreciated. And we'll see you back for something else soon. Thank you.